Let's write our tunneling goo block entity. In this block entity, we will use facings and things become a little bit more complex compared to what we had already for other goos. Hello everyone, this is Ali Reza. Welcome to the Mentor Code Lab. Before we start this video, I will gonna tell you the fact that this block entity has nothing new concept-wise. You already know everything that you need to know about the code. However, I want to finish my mod at the same time, teach you, and at the same time record everything in front of the camera so that you may find something useful there. The very first thing we need to do in our tick method is just this section. The tunneling is responsible of digging a tunnel under the ground whenever we need it. This is the tunneling goo BE, and for the tunneling, we don't need to have any chance. So we just check the word if it's null or not, if we are powered or not, and that would be it. Because the moment we activate the tunneling goo, it will instantiate thousands of air goo bomb blocks in one direction. And finally, we would be able to support ourselves having a tunnel. So we start with three for loops. For int x equals to -1, x is less than 2, x plus plus. Means that the x will go from -1 to 1, basically 3 offset. We will use the same thing for the y. For the y, I will start with 1 and less than 4. You may wonder why did I change the values? Because when we activate the goo block, I want the tunnel to be one level above the goo block's y level. Okay? Then we want for int z equals to 0. Z is less than. Now we want server word here because I don't think word.getGame rules is there. As you see, it's not there. But I will do something that recently the blog post on Fabric said not to do that. Basically, in I think 1.21.3, Fabric had something in their blog post saying that you shouldn't typecast word to server word directly. The reason is that it can be wrong. You may be on the client. However, in this particular case and in every other goo block or any extension of iTickable block entities, we are safe because the tick method is only running server side. So this word is automatically a server word. But if you are not using my library, take note that you need to do something like this. You say if word instance of server word, you name it SW, and then you negate the whole thing, then you return. And then here, instead of server word, you use SW. But I don't need to do that because, as I said, I'm sure that we are on the server side. And finally, here I can say get game rules. And from there, we say dot get int. And actually, this is from my notes. In my notes, I had these integers as game rules. However, now I remember that we changed that to be a config. Configs dot goo spread distance and then z plus plus. Now we are going from 0 to 256 on this z direction, and then we want to get two different things. One is a block pause. We call it new pause, and we are not instantiating it with anything. However, we want a direction, and we call it direction. To get the direction, I will start a try and catch block, but I'm not going to use the exception, so I will say no OP, means that I will remove this try and catch after finishing the tests. And if something is going on and it will drop an exception, I want to see that exception and crash the game. So here we say direction equals to entity dot properties dot fields dot get field. Now the field we want is that facing, player dot facing. Copy it, paste it. This will make sure that we don't have any typos. Of course, you could provide a static string value, but who cares right now? Then the class type. The class type is direction.class. Finally, get value will return the direction to us. At the end of this try catch, I may not want to use that direction without any problem. So I will say direction facing equals to direction. Now, why are you yelling at me? Because we have to initialize it with something, okay? Now, at the end of this code here, I will say if the direction equals to null, please return. Don't do anything because right now I should be sure that I have a direction on the block. If I don't have it, I can't run any of my code after it. Okay, now that we have the facing, we can use that facing. So we say if facing is actually direction.north, we want to do something. Then we say else, and I will lazily copy the whole thing and change the direction later. So else if the direction is south, we want to do another thing. If the direction is east, we want to do something else. And finally, if we are west. Take note, I'm not using up or down for two reasons. First, we are getting the horizontal facing. Second, we don't want to tunnel upward or downward. I created that new pause outside of the for loop. Let me get it from here back to here. The reason is that I don't want to instantiate a new block position each time we are iterating through the loop. By having one position object in memory, we are actually, I think, removing a few thousand, maybe 2,000 or 3,000 objects from memory and destroying them, and garbage collector has to clean the memory. So just remember, in these conditions, having one variable sitting out of these loops is a huge optimization on the speed. Now we say new pause equals to the new pause dot north. You'll close that and say new pause equals to new pause dot east. We'll close that. Okay, before this, if you notice, we have this new pause not being anything else. So I need to instantiate it. I will say new pause equals to pause dot. Now here's the deal. I want to move up with the amount of y in the loop. Here's the deal. For each direction that we are facing, we need to use different offsets. For example, if you are using the south, we don't use north. It will be south. And we will go from west to east. Basically, when I'm saying dot north, it means that we are moving from north to south, from east to west, and here we are flipping it back. And again, for the east, I will say, hey, east to west, and from south to north. And finally, for the west side, we will go from west to east and from north to south. You may say that, hey, why are you changing the top values from being north and south and stick to the west and east on the bottom? The reason is that I'm using z and x in this order, z, x, and finally z and x. This way, I am moving from, for example, north 0 to north 256. And this time I'm moving from south 0 to south 256, east 0 to east 256, and so on and so forth. And the other direction will be my width of the tunnel. So the first line is the length and the second line is the width. Okay, now that we have a new position, we can say, please process the block on the word. Then we need a position. Guess what? We have the new pause, and the entity will be the entity that we have. And finally, the block. Now, the block, as I said, will be mod blocks.air_goo. Okay? And by using air_goo, we are effectively destroying the whole tunnel. But before that, we are actually breaking the blocks and dropping them on the floor near the player. And all of that is happening with one single line of code. Now, after all the for loops, we want to say word.setBlockState for current position. That's the goose position. Blocks.stone.getDefaultState and block.notifyAll. Basically, at the end, we convert ourselves to be a stone block. Now, you may ask, how did I figure these directions? It's simple. Go into the game using something like Minihot, find your facing direction, and take a look at the gizmo on F3. You know that we have a red and blue lines at the center with a Y going upward. The red one is the X, the blue one is the Z, and the direction that the lines are being drawn is positive. So you will see that if we are looking at the north, what is our left-hand side and what is our right-hand side, and how do we want to traverse from one direction to the other direction. This is a proper way of doing it. If you don't know what you're doing, then pay attention that the length is actually always in the same direction as the facing. When you figure that one, for the second line, you can use one of the three other directions and, just give it a try and see if it worked or not. Then use another one. Of course, if you are moving from current north direction forward, this should never ever be south. So it should be either east or west. Give it a try and see the result. Okay, now that we had done this, we can test this in game. Let's go into the world. Let's see if this works in the game or not. So we go into the test world. Of course, I can't test this on the ground because guess what? It will not work. All we will see is a bunch of air goo bombs coming and vanishing. However, I had some tests regarding the chunk goo blocks, and you can see the result of those tests right now when we log into the game. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go and watch the previous videos. So here are the blocks, and apparently the goo blocks have finished their job. Are we? No, actually they are working. So soon we should see some items spawning there and dropping down. Let the board load around ourselves. There are tons of things happening around me right now, and that's the reason we have some lags. Yeah, it's actually behaving right now, but it's hard to see because there are tons of things here. There are items being spawning here and dropping down into the blocks. Okay, as you see, our goo blocks should move down because they are actually in powered state. Yeah, they are moving down, and we don't need to save the power state because that's a property on the block and not related to block entities. Okay, now that we have these, let's move somewhere else away from seeing all those items, somewhere like here. Okay, this should be enough. Now remember, I said that this block that we will put the goo in will be converted back to being a stone block. Now let's get that tunneling goo. Okay, let's put it there. Now remember, the moment I activate this block, the player's facing will be used, and we will have tons of blocks being dropped on our way in our place. So if I can cooperate with all this lag. Okay, ready? I will hit the block. I'm not sure if the video will record it properly or not because of the lag. And you saw a bunch of clicking sounds, and you see that it returned and changed back to being the stone. And if I go into my inventory is full of junk. Of course, because I'm in creative, I don't have any mess around myself. However, we would have some blocks underneath us. Now let's go into this tunnel. Let me give myself some torches. The aim here is to see if we prevent any real block that is problematic. For example, here I was hoping that the air goo bomb would replace these with a stone, but it won't do that actually. And you see that we are actually getting into an empty space. That's okay. The reason we can't convert these properly is that the center block that we are using to dig down on 3x3, if we are not making sure that we are just destroying ourselves, there is no way into identifying that, hey, this is a block that needs to be broken, or if it shouldn't be stone, stuff like that, you can't identify what you are doing and when you are doing it. Unfortunately, I don't see any block that shouldn't be broken in front of me, but it looks like we hit the water here and we move forward more, and this should be the end of the tunnel because honestly I don't see any digging in front of us. Okay, so this is 256 tunnel digged out in few seconds. If we go down into deeper layers, we will be able to see some ores maybe obstructing our way because the process block is looking for the forbidden blocks and we'll try to avoid them. So let's go down into deeper layers, and thankfully the lag is better now. Okay, I will activate this block, and unfortunately my FPS is so low now that you won't be able to see the effect. The reason of this low FPS is tons of hoppers and different things that are working on the background on other chunks, and I can't find a distance that would be proper. Anyway, let's activate it, and bam, we have tons of air goo bombs that are actually digging the tunnel for me. If I didn't have any lag, this would be perfect. Normally when I play the game test, I don't see any lags. The reason is that I'm not recording anything, but when I'm recording the camera and playing the game at the same time, there will eventually be some lags. And now that I'm away from the goo chunk processing distance, I think we are moving faster. Unfortunately, I don't think we hit any ore on the road. Okay, we can give ourselves another test. So remember, we need to go one layer down. Activate it and take a look. Boom. And now we are going in the proper direction. So unfortunately, again, we didn't hit any ore on the way, and this is the end. Don't forget, right now I'm flying through this, and if I look at my inventory, I don't see any, raw iron. So we are actually breaking some things that we shouldn't. Oh, okay. And I was wondering if there was something wrong there or not. And this was exactly what I wanted to take note. Now, in the process block, we are immediately breaking the block regardless of being in the blacklist or not. Actually, we were checking that blacklist ourselves, I think. Yes, each time that we want to process the block. So either I have to cut this from here and paste it on the tunneling right above here. So we are checking if the new pause is not blacklisted, then the process goes on, or eventually I can remove that and make sure that I'm adding it on top of here. So I will say if work.get block state at the position is in the reference Go blacklist. I did drop the idea of having multiple blacklists. I just have one that makes my life easier. Then we want to return. We won't break anything. We will not replace anything. We will immediately return. We will not break anything. We will not replace it with any block goo or anything else because we don't want to handle ores being broken by the goo. And I did just notice that because I had seen some raw irons inside my inventory, and I think it was a lucky hit because if in the first pass we didn't get that, I would immediately miss this one. Okay, now that we have it, the tunneling is behaving properly. We identified the problem and solved it. However, in the chunk goo bomb, we don't need any of these if statements anymore because, oh, actually, wait a minute. Oh, here we are using if statement. So I will return a boolean, and here I returns false at the end of everything. We return true. So going back to our tunneling, I don't care if we succeeded or not. We just go through everything. In the chunk, again, we are not caring about anything. We just pass. However, chunk bomb, we will take this section and move it here. So I will say if not that, actually we say if that, return. So because I'm returning, I don't need these ifs. We don't need the else, so we return. Again, remove the else, remove the negation. If this was successful, then we don't want to return actually. What should I do here? I don't want to repeat this code. Okay, this will be a nasty one. So if this failed, we go into this condition. If this was failed, we go into this condition. If this one failed, we go into this condition. If this one failed, we go into this condition, failed, the next condition, and actually this one means the last call, so I just directly call the fifth one and get done with it. And finally, at the end, we will go with replacing ourselves. Now, this is not something I like it, but honestly, it's the most compact code that you can have. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nested ifs. It's not more complicated and worse than having if-else statements in the compiled and runtime back end, but in your reading, that's a totally different story. So here we say if we fail this process, again, we are going for the next one. If we fail this process, we go for the next one. Failing this process, we go for the next one. Failing this process, we go for the next one. Failing this process means that we are at the end of the rope, so we just hit the last block and get done with it. Okay, now the towering is done, chunk goo is done, and finally the tunneling was fixed and everything will work. You can give it a try, but because I did do this, I'm now sure that it will work. In the next video, we will come back and do a very complex goo that is more like having a shenanigan. And I'm telling you, this will look complex and we will revisit it much later when we learn new things. If you like these videos, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and turn on that bell so that when I publish a new video, you will get informed. Have fun, everyone. Bye.